Hi, folks. It's Andy Korodeski with the Cellarmasters of Los Angeles Home Winemaking Club, and this is the June edition of What to Do in the Wine Cellar. So, what we're basically at this point in time, your wines were made in the fall of last year and are now aging in various containers. In my winery, I use 15-gallon beer kegs, and I use 5 and 3, and sometimes smaller carboys. And really, there's the only thing to do at this point in the winery is make sure that your wine doesn't get ruined. The oxidation will kill your wines. Any kind of oxygen getting into your wines at this point during these months of aging will ruin the wines completely. It's very difficult for us home winemakers to make wine in small containers. It's much more difficult to make wine in small containers than it is in big ones. If you have a half-inch headspace in a 66-gallon barrel, the effect that will have on the wine is not even close to the effect that a half-inch of headspace will have on on wine in a carboy, for example. And so what I do in my carboys is I make sure that the wine is right up to the bottom of the bung. I don't want to see any kind of headspace, honestly, in there at all. And I can do that because my space here, my wine cellar is climate controlled, so there isn't a big swing in temperatures. If your area is not climate controlled and there are big daily swings in temperature, then you're gonna have to work out something a little different than what I'm doing here. But I fill the wine up right up to the bottom of the bung, and then I make sure that the temperature in the wine is held fairly constant. One of the issues, though, although the air temperature is held fairly constant, my wine cellar is in my garage and it's on a concrete slab, and that slab heats up in the summer, and so that slab gives some heat to my carboys and my beer barrels, and so the wine actually does get a little bit warmer. And when it gets a little bit warmer, sometimes it does go ahead and expands in volume, and sometimes it does go ahead and overflow the S-lock. And as you can see, here's one right here that overflowed pretty well. And what I should do is clean that out and make sure that that no critters grow in that S-lock. And so, if I can get organized here. All right. So and I'll give you my process of doing this. Hopefully, it'll help someone. It was kind of a pain in the butt to do this previously, but what I found was this suction bulb with a little tube on it. And what I do is I just slide the tube into the S-lock, weight down into the bottom, and I squeeze it so that it forms a suction. I suction all of that bad solution out, and I go ahead and just pour some new solution in. And then I put the cover back on. And it seems to go pretty quickly and painlessly, so I suggest that as a process to anybody who has to deal with this as much as I do. What I also do is I want to be very careful that nothing's leaking, that nothing is going to be leaking any oxygen into my wine. And so you can see that these bungs are really pretty tight. And these barrels work out pretty well because they can expand and contract a little bit. So even though there are some temperature fluctuations with this slab, as I was talking about earlier, the barrels don't break. These carboys, on the other hand, I used to hard bung them, and when they warmed up just a little bit from my garage slab warming up, they would break. And nothing worse than coming home from work and finding 5 or 10 gallons of what was beautiful wine soaking into your garage floor. If you look at this bung, you can see that there is some red residue at the base, and there's also some red residue down here as well. So this bung did actually pop out a couple of weeks ago, and I just pounded it back in with a hammer and cleaned it up as best as I could, and hopefully the wine inside hasn't been ruined. I don't think it did. It was a very small leak, and I don't think it was there for more than a day or two. So again, so what you want to do, so what you're doing at this time of the year is doing everything you can to make sure that your wine stays fresh, that it doesn't get oxidized, it doesn't get acetaldehydes or acetic acids, and that's all due to oxygen exposure. And if you can get a climate controlled room like I have, it makes things a lot easier. Although it's still not easy for the home winemaker. All right, folks, this is Andy Korodeski signing off.